I think he will feel it hugely. I think he will be furious, absolutely furious. Who knows where this is going to end?
Hi all, Kinsey Schofield here, and I am so excited to be with Ailsa Anderson. It is, okay, so I'm gonna just say right now, this is the first time we've been together. You worked for Queen Elizabeth for over a decade, and I know my audience is going, we want all the story, we want the corgis, we wanna hear about all of your, you met Kate Winslet.
I did,
you know,
I did.
You have this, you have this incredible collection of stories about your time with Queen Elizabeth, and what a blessing that was. And I have already cornered you and said, you owe me another date, but we have got to talk about the breaking news this week and some of the chaos that has surrounded the palace. And, you know, as the former press secretary of Queen Elizabeth, there's no one else I want to talk to about this, because when it came to crisis management, when it came to navigating difficult situations, you were the call that it was you that was making some of those high-profile decisions. Watching what has unfolded with Prince Harry, the will they, won't they, will Harry meet with his father, will the children come, will Meghan be there? How have you digested what you've seen in the last 2 weeks regarding Prince Harry and his handling of the media?
It feels like being on a roller coaster and where there's no way off. And all I think is, thank goodness, my lucky stars. I count my lucky stars that I'm not working in the royal household today, because I just think, you know, they just don't know where the next sort of hurdle, the next missile is going to come from. And just watching the news yesterday and seeing that Harry's team, his spokesman, confirmed that he would be staying at Buckingham Palace, and then almost immediately, the royal household, Buckingham Palace, saying, actually, he won't be staying at Buckingham Palace. And it feels chaotic. It feels like a drama. It feels like, you know, the Real Housewives of LA. I mean, it's just, you would never expect that from the British monarchy. It's just absolutely extraordinary.
The Real Housewives of Montecito.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, of course.
Talk to me about Never Complain, Never Explain, because I do think that that's one of the reasons why the royals maintain such an incredible mystique. And to me, the mystery remains sexy, and it's why they can stay so relevant. But this is one of those few times where somebody said, never complain, never explain is not an option here. Can you work around in your head why there was a sense of urgency to shut down the rumor that Harry was staying at Buckingham Palace so quickly? Because it really did. I have friends that were briefed by Harry's team, he's staying there, and they feel like today they have a black eye. They are insulted. They feel like this was done intentionally. They're humiliated. They had to go on TV and apologize, or they felt the need to explain themselves. And you know, a lot of the reason that is because the palace so quickly was like, that's absolutely not true.
Of course, I suppose what you've got to think about is, did Harry actually tell his team what he was going to do? Did he tell them that he had a phone call on Saturday saying that, you know, the offer was now sort of off the table and he couldn't stay at the palace? You know, was he informing his advisors? And what I do think is, you know, when Harry was here in the United Kingdom, he was surrounded by some really good senior advisors to give him some proper, thoughtful advice. You know, I don't know who's doing his advice for him now, unless he's doing it himself, but it's clearly it's not working. And it's turned into a shambles. It's just absolutely awful. And for his reputation, and for the reputation of, you know, his wife, even the children, for the knock-on effect, you know, that's all that people are going to think about. And it takes a shine away from the real reason that he's come over to the United Kingdom to promote the Invictus Games. You know, no one is talking about the Invictus Games. People are talking about, is he living at Buckingham Palace or not while he's here?
Well, and it's my understanding that leadership within Invictus is very disappointed by this experience, because they want the focus to stay on the veterans. And we watched the way that there was really an avalanche surrounding Cinnabale, and finally Dr. Sophie Shandaka said, Harry and Meghan are a distraction. We're having trouble fundraising because to steal your word, it's total chaos that surrounds them. And it's unfortunate that we're seeing that reflected in this trip that was supposed to be all about the Invictus Games and the veterans and this countdown. But you also mentioned to me off camera, Katherine's doing some really important work this week, the Princess of Wales. You know, those moments where we see Katherine engaging with sick children, especially cancer-stricken children, how important is that when you are a senior royal to be seen in those moments? And does it frustrate you that Harry's distracting from that as well?
I think it would frustrate anybody about this huge distraction. I mean, you know, 1 in 2 people in the United Kingdom suffer with one form of cancer. The Princess of Wales shines a light on those people who don't have a voice. You know, she spotlights some really meaty causes. And yet, all we're talking about today, we're not really talking about Katherine at the Children's Hospital. We're not talking about her doing her 3 Peaks challenge last week to raise money for cancer charities. We're talking about Harry not staying at Buckingham Palace. So, you know, the voice of the voiceless is going unrecognised because we're talking about Harry.
Right. Well, we should say that she was with Royal Marsden, who she also just recently raised money for through the 3 Peaks challenge. And, you know, she released that very emotional video. We've seen 2 really emotional videos from her in the last few years well, actually, I'd say 3. We saw her tell the world she had cancer at Windsor, which was devastating. I'm in remission. That was a beautiful video. And then the 3 Peaks challenge, expressing why it was important to her that she pursue this, that there's life after cancer. You have to continue to challenge yourself.
Absolutely.
And I do think that more people will contribute to Royal Marsden because Katherine really is consistent in her messaging, which, sorry to go back here, but I think that that's one of the reasons that the Sussexes have failed over the last 6 years. We don't know what they stand for. We don't know, and they don't live what they say. You know, Katherine is living this pursuit, this passion of hers. So do you think that consistency is one of the reasons she remains so important to the monarchy?
I do think that. I also think she's genuine. I think she's authentic, and she, you know, she's warm. And what has really struck me, certainly for her most recent visits, is the warmth that she's shown to people, which is a direct contrast to what Meghan said the Oprah interview about Katherine not being a warm person.
She's not a hugger.
Yeah. And you
What?
I know, and you saw the images of her at the Children's Hospital yesterday, and she was blowing kisses to the kids, and she was down on sort of on their level talking to them, and she was engaging with them. And, you know, you can't fool children. Children can see right through people who are being dishonest. And they adored her. They absolutely adored her. So she is authentic. You know, she is what they get on the tin. She is, you know, in my eyes, she does not put a foot wrong. She is absolutely seamless in the way she conducts herself.
I completely agree with you. And when we hear the complaints about being a princess or what it's like to marry into the royal family, I'm sure it is hard. I'm sure it's very difficult. But compared to the way that Katherine has executed this, she has made this look effortless. She has made it look seamless. Even when she was under siege online over what was truly going on with her, which was none of our business and cancer. So we, you know, everybody that sat and debated it, in my opinion, was a horrible person. You know, she rose above and she refused to go there. And it must be difficult to be compared to her, to your point, because she makes it look so easy.
She does, but she also does it behind the cameras. And I remember, you know, we obviously worked incredibly hard to deliver their wedding, their perfect wedding. And she came into the press office in Buckingham Palace a couple of weeks later after her honeymoon to thank the team.
You are kidding.
No, she wanted to do that, to come and say thank you. So no cameras there, no nothing. She just wanted to have a tour of the press office and thank each and every person. And there were only 12 of us there. Who worked and contributed to making the wedding the success it was. She didn't have to do that, but she did, and she wanted to.
12 people pulled off that wedding?
Yeah. We had a lot of help from lots of other organisations.
Right.
But it was
Oh, it's my favorite wedding to this day. I haven't seen Travis and Taylor's yet, but it is my favorite wedding to this day. It was so, you know, perfectly executed. It was like watching a Disney movie.
I have to say, I stayed in the Buckingham Palace the night before, and my room overlooked the Mall. and I could hardly get any sleep because people were celebrating, they were cheering, you could hear the corks going off the champagne bottles. I mean, it was an absolutely electric atmosphere, and it was such a privilege to be in that palace the night before, you know, one of the greatest weddings I think I've certainly ever seen.
Absolutely.
Including my own.
That is so sweet. Does it surprise you? Because we've had a lead up to Harry's visit for a few weeks now. I mean, according to some reports, Harry's been planning this since January, which makes you even more annoyed that he would not give the palace proper, a proper answer as to whether or not he was staying. He would call them the Saturday before the Monday to say yes or no. But we've had a few weeks, just the general public, in the lead up to this trip. Does it surprise you that the Royals have 29 events on their schedule this week? Does that tell you they are staying focused, they're going to stay above the fray, and that they refuse to be distracted by whatever the circus that's in town?
Because if you start engaging, you're actually adding sort of oxygen to the fire, aren't you? So by staying focused, by, you know, keep calm and carry on, doing all the amazing things that the King and the Queen and the rest of the royal family do on a day-to-day basis, you know, often without any publicity, without any fanfare. You know, this is UK monarchy at its best. You know, focused, carrying on with what they're great at, and not being dragged into the chaos surrounding Harry and his visit, which is a real shame. You know, I genuinely know that Harry feels really strongly about the Invictus Games. It was his baby, his founding. You know, he's ex-military himself. I know the veterans respect it, but what the veterans won't like is the chaos that's surrounding this visit now, because the focus is not on the games, it's on Harry. Yeah,
it's very. We'll get into some of the other stuff that's happened in a second, but you know, you knew Harry, you knew a younger Harry. Would you have ever predicted, especially working so closely with Queen Elizabeth, who it's my understanding adored him, would you have ever predicted that things have turned out this way with him?
No, I wouldn't. So I left the royal household in the end of 2013. And I think Harry was the media's darling. I think he was more popular, actually, at that time than William. William was sort of much more serious, much quieter, where Harry was this cheeky chappy, you know, that always would come up to you and chat to you. You know, I've got a photograph in my hallway of Harry and I with our arms around each other after the Diamond Jubilee. You know, a big beaming smile on his face, very, very approachable, very warm, very chatty. And you fast forward to now, and he's almost, in my view, unrecognisable to what he was then. And I don't know why that is. I really don't. I don't know.
Well, would you say that, back to Katherine, the Princess of Wales, would you say that the woman you marry, your support system, is very important because they help you navigate this very bizarre situation that they're in? I
think you're right. And also, he's cut off from his friends, he's cut off from his family, he's living in a country which he wasn't born into. It must feel quite isolated. Yeah, and who is his go-to person? Who is the person that he can share his hopes and dreams and fears, and who's going to give him some proper advice?
Hey everyone, Kinsey Schofield here, and I want to tell you about today's sponsor. It's a total game changer, Peak's Liver Detox Protocol. You may not know it, but your liver handles a lot: energy, hormones, digestion, and even your mood. But with all the stress and toxins from everyday life, it needs some love. Forget harsh cleanses. Peak delivers gentle daily support inspired by traditional Chinese medicine. Their routine uses two simple blends. The first is a warming turmeric mix with cinnamon and black pepper, designed to help the body absorb it better and support the liver while calming inflammation. The second is a ginger and cinnamon blend that helps with blood flow, digestion, bloating, and immune support. The magic is how they work together to activate and flush for better digestion, stable energy, less brain fog, and that light, clear feeling. My energy is consistent, my skin is clear, and less bloating. That's Peak, where spirit meets science. Redefine your standard of health, secure 20% off your order, and begin your intentional wellness journey today at peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. Thanks so much.
I grabbed some quotes from you, and we'll go into this Daily Mail case, but, you know, I wanted to ask you regarding the Queen and Prince Harry. You said the Queen was good at keeping secrets. Harry, not so much. I mean, we'll go into some of the logistics in a second. He just lost this Daily Mail case where he was accusing them of invading his privacy, and you open up Spare and there are private text messages between the Princess of Wales and Meghan Markle. I mean, he has monetized invading his own family's privacy. I do believe that the Queen set these standards.
Yes.
Why did he not consume, you know, some of her wisdom in the keeping secrets part?
I mean, she was the absolute commander-in-chief of keeping secrets. You know, I've had various prime ministers who have said the one audience they used to have a week, so the prime minister of the day would go and see the Queen once a week, and they could tell the Queen anything, and they absolutely knew that that wouldn't go anywhere else.
Wow.
Which is quite, you know, it's almost like going into a confession box, I suppose.
Oh, amen. Yeah.
So yeah, she was extraordinary, and that's what the family is about. It's about duty. It's about service and not self. It's about representing those who don't have a voice. And the Queen was masterful, as is King Charles, I think. You know, absolutely masterful at that.
He is.
And I think there is such a breakdown of trust between the King and Prince William and Prince Harry now. I just don't know how this is ever going to sort of get back to normal. And I think, you know, potentially this week could have been a really possible, you know, icebreaker maybe if it hadn't all gone completely wrong. You know, if Harry had said right at the beginning, yes, thank you so much, Pa, I will stay in Buckingham Palace, I would love to see you, you know, let's start to rebuild the trust and the relationship, you know, that could have meant something. But, you know, today I don't see how it's going to be built up again, and that, I think the trust is just completely deteriorated.
I could not agree more. I could pull my hair out because listening to what you're saying, is that not the obvious solution? And I think we were seeing a temper tantrum, you know, when he tells Buckingham Palace, no, I'm not staying there. I'm sure his security team goes back to him and says, realistically, this is the safest place in the world for you to rest your head.
Yeah.
He goes back to the palace and says, I've changed my mind. And they go, that's just not an option for you. I mean, for those at home watching, you know, this isn't a father turning his son away like some people are trying to paint it. Can you go into the protocol that might exist when it comes to preparing a construction site? Literally, Buckingham Palace is currently a construction site.
Yeah.
And it's not currently being lived in. So you're going to have to outsource the proper staff to take care of him. You're going to have to feed him.
Right.
You know, there's so much that goes into this.
You're totally right. So no member of the royal family, no working member of the royal family are living at Buckingham Palace currently. Now, Buckingham Palace is funded by the taxpayer. No one's living in there. So the taxpayer, if Harry decided he wanted to stay there, taxpayer would be funding him. You need all the support staff, you need the security, you need the catering, you need the police. You know, there's so many members of staff that would need to be on hand to do that, to look after a private individual who Harry is. Harry's not a working member of the royal family. You know, he's a private individual who will be staying at Buckingham Palace if he so wished. So you can't suddenly, at the last minute, take all those members of staff who are supporting working members of the royal family to suddenly sort of go and relocate to Buckingham Palace to look after Harry for one night.
For one night.
One night only.
And it's my understanding that in the lead up to this preparation, there were expectations that it wouldn't just be four. I mean, it was supposed to be Harry, Meghan, the children, and then said entourage. And imagine preparing for all of those individuals and then getting the call, no, I'm not coming. Wait, I'm still coming. And then having to reevaluate how you would shrink down all of that preparation for one individual. It's horrible to say when you think about family, but what a waste of resources.
Yeah.
And taxpayer fund, you know, taxpayer money to your point.
And as you rightly said, this is the safest place that he could stay probably in the United Kingdom. Yeah. So I don't know why he had to reevaluate his security situation after the committee said, no, we're not going to provide armed security, because this is a very safe place.
Well, not only that, but like our expectation was that there weren't going to be any changes. I mean, I've said it from the get-go of this. I felt like he was trying to pressure the king into stepping in and helping him get the security that he wanted through the way that he communicated with the media, which is manipulation, in my opinion, especially bringing the children into it. Could that have been the strategy?
I don't know. I would hope.
You're being too nice
not.
right now. I'm just kidding.
I would, but the king he's a constitutional monarch. He cannot constitutionally get involved in something like that. It's a Home Office matter. It's government matter. He could not do that. It would completely breach all the constitutional rules. And Harry knows that. So to use this sort of almost emotional blackmail played out onto a global stage, it's tit for tat. He's in his 40s, Harry. He's not a boy anymore. He should know that. Rather than throwing his toys out of the cot and saying, no, it's not fair, I'm stamping my foot, I'm not going to go and stay anymore, so there, no.
Yeah.
He's in his 40s, grow up.
Totally. That's my favorite quote so far. I love this from you. The Queen always considered the consequences of her actions. I mean, I do think that there's a contradiction in Harry's behavior there too. Like, Harry, have you ever seen, because you spent 13 years with her, have you ever seen somebody put words in the Queen's mouth the way that the Sussexes have? I mean, Harry sat down with NBC and said, when she was still alive, that they had this very deep relationship. He was worried about the people that were around her. He's tried to build...
Men in grey suits.
The men in grey suits. He's really tried to build this story that he had a deeper relationship with her that we wouldn't understand. I mean, actions say otherwise. Her twilight years were ruined by his behavior. But I don't think that Harry considers the consequences of his actions. I think he acts before he thinks what could become of me or my reputation if this doesn't go my way.
I think it goes back again to the point of, who is advising him? Who are the senior advisors who are saying to him, if you do this, Harry, Your Royal Highness, sir, the consequences of that. And I think the book, Spare, speaks volumes in that. He talks now about his security and he's on sort of a target list, but yet he was the one in his book to say how many members of the Taliban he'd killed while he was in the army.
Right.
Clearly that's going to have consequences.
Exactly.
So, think before you act. And I think with the royal family, the late Queen certainly, after the Oprah interview, when they talked about the colour of Archie's skin before he was born, rather than sort of issuing a statement, a knee-jerk reaction to what Meghan had said, they thought about it, they considered the options, and of course the most telling phrase of all, recollections may vary, we're still quoting now. It's very clever, it's a real masterful art in proper communication, I think.
I think I need it on a pillow. And a cute little pillow. I love this quote, and it also reminded me of Harry. You talked about things you learned from the Queen. Don't pretend to be something you're not. We see Harry campaign against children online, and that putting your children online, and then he's got a wife that's constantly posting previews of his children online. There are a lot of contradictions in what Harry's just... Last night, Harry is with his photographer friend who's accused of anti-Semitism and had to step down from his charity over alleged anti-Semitic tweets, or people observed them and consumed them as anti-Semitic tweets. And Harry just wrote an article about anti-Semitism in the UK. Yeah. His actions consistently contradict his words. And so that was powerful to me, that one of the things you said you learned from Queen Elizabeth is don't pretend to be something you're not. It's almost, I think you might have said this to me earlier, just like stay in your lane, Harry. Stay with what you know versus trying to be what Meghan wants him to be?
Or trying to be all things for all people.
Yeah.
Because that takes away your authenticity. And people won't believe you. They won't buy into your, who you are and what you do. People will lose trust in you.
They will.
I haven't been to the States for a long time, sadly.
Well, come see me.
I would love to come and see you. Thank you. Come see you and your dogs.
Yes.
But I don't know, when they first moved there, their star was really up there, wasn't it? I mean, it was gleaming. They were, compared to even the British royal family, they were the masterclass. I don't know how they're perceived now. You tell me.
They are not popular. I mean, you are seeing doors slammed in their face. They weren't at Taylor and Travis's wedding. You never see a walk around.
Neither was I.
I know. My invitation was lost in the mail. But you know, at those key events where Meghan wasn't at the Emmys for either season of her, you know, little lifestyle show. They weren't at the Emmys for their reality show that, to be fair, is their only commercial success for Netflix. They're trying to elbow their way into a space that's continuously rejecting them because, back to our point, there's a lack of authenticity, there's a lack of sincerity. They're trying to be something that they're not. And I think that they sold Netflix and Spotify a bill of goods, and you know, the return on investment just wasn't there. They aren't actually as creative or willing to share or willing to work as hard as is needed to make it in Hollywood.
But sometimes I reflect when I'm at home, do you think their actions are actually the greatest thing for the British monarchy? Because people really recognise actually the King and the Queen and the rest of the family are doing a really great work despite all the noise that Harry's creating at the time. Absolutely.
I don't know if you were nervous, but I was nervous when the Queen passed away that the King Charles, would not be accepted. You know, there were always these bizarre rumors circulating that, well, probably post-Panorama, that they would skip King Charles and just go straight to Prince William, that it would be King William, that Charles wasn't fit to be king. I was nervous that people wouldn't accept him, especially after the stability of Queen Elizabeth. And I believe because Harry and Meghan were so venomous that we felt sympathy for King Charles and Queen Camilla. You know, he just lost his father, he just lost his mother. You've got Harry releasing a book and a television show, and it was tacky. I mean, you couldn't imagine betraying a member of your family like that. And so you're absolutely right. I think that their actions have boosted the popularity of the royal family because they have shown us grace.
They have.
In the way that they've behaved. I mean, the one time I've seen Prince William respond to it is, we are very much not a racist family. That was an important message.
Yep. And unprecedented.
Right.
You know, the 13 years that I worked for the royal family, I've never ever had a member of the royal family during an engagement actually answer a shout out by a member of the media before. So you could imagine the depth of feeling that William was feeling at the time about this sort of, this almost hatred for his own family by a member of his own family.
Right, yeah. And so I don't know, I feel like you're right on the money that while they have tried to monetize victimhood, which was very popular in the States for a minute, thanks to the Me Too, and those things just kind of got out of control. Everybody was raising their hand saying, well, let me tell you about this one time, and it just became, I think people became overwhelmed with it. Like, at some point we need to focus on the future and let go of the past. And I don't think Harry and Meghan got the memo. Can I ask you about the optics from maybe even a press secretary position of Harry? We found out Harry lost his court case against the Daily Mail today. Had Harry packed up, he was then, I believe he was at an Invictus event when he got the news, gone back to Buckingham Palace, stood outside the gates, gave a fiery speech, reacted in any way, shape, or form. Would that have reflected poorly on King Charles? Is that something that might have been in their head? Because that is what the Sussexes claim, that the king is not allowing him Buckingham Palace because of this court case. I mean, I don't know if that would have been a great look for the palace, for Harry to have been complaining about the results of this court case outside of the one symbol that we have that reflects the monarchy so beautifully.
I think, personally, if he'd done that, I think it reflected more poorly on him than the monarch.
So you don't think that maybe what was a concern for them?
I don't. This court case was all about Harry and the other individuals versus associated newspapers, who were the owners of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday. I don't think it would have reflected on the monarchy, on the king. And I think we still hear that Harry may be issuing a statement later today on the court case.
Yeah.
But I know from personal experience, I have never briefed about other members of the royal family to try and boost another member. And I know Harry thinks, the men in grey suits who work for the palace used to do that, but certainly it never happened on my watch.
Oh, well, that is good to hear. I mean, he does tell that story quite frequently, to the point that at the beginning I believed it because he was so passionate about that. But the longer you get to know Harry and Meghan, the more you realize that they might be the villains of the story, who made Katherine cry. I'm sorry, but based on what we've seen over the last few years, I'm going to assume Meghan Markle made Katherine cry,
But then you remember when they first got engaged, and people in the United Kingdom, they thought it was the best love story, the most wonderful story, that they've ever seen. Here was this beautiful American actress, funny, smart, biracial, modernising the royal family. They're a bit of a stuffy royal family. And, people really wanted them to do well. They really wanted them to be part of the new team. They were called the Fab Four, if you remember.
I do.
William and Catherine and Meghan and Harry. They were the future. And yet now we look at it and they're not. They're almost irrelevant.
It's true. Irrelevant is a good word. Can I ask you, my audience is under the impression that the Harry we see today is truly who Prince Harry is, and that between the Nazi costume, the use of racist language, fights with paparazzi outside of nightclubs, the palace did a very good job of turning that narrative around and making him the enchanted prince, the world's most eligible bachelor, Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. Can you tell me, based on what you witnessed or based on what you were involved in, how much effort went into building the Prince Harry brand that people fell in love with? And it's okay to say I think that that's genuinely him, but I will tell you that my audience believes that the palace broke their back to make him such a charming, likable character.
I think the public always had a soft spot for Harry because he was so young when his mother was tragically killed in that car crash, and people will never forget the image of him and his brother walking behind the coffin. And I think he did have whatever antics he got up to when he was younger, and you're quite right about the Nazi uniform and playing pool naked in Vegas, I think it was.
We should never forget about Vegas.
What goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. I think people still had that huge, sorrow for him and sympathy for him, and they wanted him to do well, and they forgave him. And then, he went to Afghanistan. He was the war hero, risking his life for, his countrymen. And then I don't think there was a lot of spin around Harry, because I think he was a different person. He was in a different place then.
It does seem like he was a completely different person. Do you think that what you described, that sympathy for him, that belief in him, that wanting him to win, has it disappeared, or deep down does it still exist because he'll always be the boy walking behind the coffin? I mean, and I say that because he's constantly reminding us of the death of Diana.
I think the British public think he's an irrelevance. I think they're worried about the state of the world.
The
Iran.
politics. We just had Farage.
Absolutely. We've got, we're going to get a new Prime Minister probably next week.
Yeah.
People are worried about their heating bills. We're in a heat wave at the moment.
Yeah.
They're worried about jobs. They're worried about unemployment. They're worried about educating their children. Yeah, I think he is, in the British people's minds now, he's just an irrelevance.
Can I ask you, before I let you go, does this loss, the Daily Mail case, hurt his credibility? Does it hurt his reputation?
I think he will feel it hugely. I think he will be furious, absolutely furious. He will clearly, I don't know who's footing his legal his legal bills.
Yeah.
How he's going to pay for it. Is there going to be compensation? Will the Mail seek damages for reputation? Who knows where this is going to end? Oof. But I think he will be in a bad place today.
I totally agree with you. like to be a fly on the wall of whatever Soho house he's
Yeah.
chosen to stay in. So because his Buckingham Palace.
Or Holiday Inn.
Yeah, Holiday Inn, exactly. Ailsa Anderson, you're going to come back and see me again. Because we're going to talk about all of your great stories, because I've heard some of them and they're absolutely enchanting, and I know my audience would love them too.
Well, thank you and thank you to your audience for listening as well. I'm really grateful.
Well, I really am tickled that you spent this time with me, and I enjoyed your point of view. But we want to know what your opinion is. Agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Thanks so much for watching. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.